And the last point, and the biggest challenge, is that the internet, that in the internet, there is as yet little room for inclusive and high-quality discussions. And I think that for political discourse, you need really professional online facilitation. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. So, what's the situation in Germany? And at the moment, this is perhaps more interesting for the people from abroad than for the people from Germany. I think for the last 2 years, there has been a hype about citizen participation, and everybody talks about it, all the parties. It's very, how can I say, particular, because from the SPD to the CDU to the Greens, everybody is talking about citizen participation. No one is against it, so it seems, yeah. And the Pirate Party has recently begun to experiment with an open source platform called Liquid Feedback, which is meant for hacking traditional forms of political representation, which sort of gives it another spin to this, to the discussion or to the hype of citizen participation. But with this hype, it also happened that the market for practitioner expanded rapidly. And to be a bit provocative, if you look at the sort of Ausschreibungen, call for tender, I think, from ministries, you know, for one big project, you all of a sudden had 50 collective Anbieter, you know, practitioners who, and you know that like a couple of years ago, there weren't so many in Germany. So what happened is that lots of business companies now put themselves on the market, and many of them have not much not much democratic engagement or understanding. So I think commercialization is a problem in Germany. Although the situation doesn't seem so bad, because an empirical study which has recently been done by my colleague Graham Smith from the University of Southampton about UK and Germany showed that the practitioners themselves, implicitly or explicitly, have sort of internalized the principles of democracy. So it doesn't seem so bad, but still I think commercialization is a one risk. As I said before, there are many experiments today, but not many are good examples or practices. You find many examples of competitions of ideas, like I mentioned before, the one by the Chancellor Angela Merkel, and very few are moderated and sort of can channel high quality discussions among citizens. So far the process of citizen participation is not at all integrated as within the overall system of representative government. And it also is not part of the regular political cycle in the life of a community, which is a problem because it's only, you know, one experiment and then nothing happens and then another one. It's really not sufficient and it's not systematic in any way. So I would say that in Germany, but also in other Western countries, there is at the moment no sustainable reform policy about these processes of citizen participation, how to integrate them in the political system. And I think this is a problem. We have to think about it. What does it do to other institutions? What does it do to legitimacy? Perhaps we're dealing with new, you know, channels of legitimation, but then you have to specify how they work together with other legitimizing procedures. So this leads me to the question what we would need in Germany, and perhaps I would say in Europe, but I'm learning from the discussion and from your experiences. I think first of all, I mean, beside the rhetoric of the claim for more citizen participation, we need a clear political will. Otherwise, it's really shaky. And this political will either has to take citizen participation seriously, which means that politicians and civil servants would need to be on a pair with citizens and truly listen to the citizens. What's happening very often is the so-called selective listening. Yeah? And this would mean a new political culture which deals with processes that are no longer top-down, but open and circular. So you don't know what is the result of a citizen participation. This is very difficult to deal with. and the traditional political culture. So that's the first point. I think that to this end, we would need massive capacity building within the administration. Because as a recent survey has shown, at least in Germany, the majority of civil servants from local and federal government said that it would take like 10 years to establish a political culture of citizen participation, and they have no preparation whatsoever. They are not at all trained to initiate these processes. So they now have to do something, but they don't know where to start. Yeah, and so they need seminars. They need some sort of training. The third is, and this is I'm very sort of, this is sort of my main point, is that I think we need concerted research in Europe on democratic innovations, because we have to deal with the question, as I said before, how to link citizen participation with representative institutions, with procedures of direct democracy. You can find examples in other countries, but you have to do research on it, and with the overall political system. So the aim of research would be to come up with a systematic reform policy. And to this end, I think it would be important not only to have a sort of theoretical research, because you can't deduce it from theory. You really have to put theory in dialogue with practitioners. This is also something so you need a new sort of culture within universities of people who do research, because they're not used to be on a pair with practitioners. But I think you need really, and I mean it's not only rhetorical. Without the practices, you can't learn anything on a theoretical basis in this field. I also think that you need exchange, and I'm at the moment organizing such an exchange between people from different regions in Europe to start with, because you don't have to learn from scratch. You can learn from examples, bad examples and good examples, from other people in different regions. You have in Italy, you have, for example, 2 laws on the regional level. That's quite outstanding laws for citizen participation in Toscana and Reggio Emilia. And so you don't have to learn to do it anew if you can learn from each other. And I think that it would also be important to establish an effective code of conduct and something like best practice in order to have some sort of principles how to do good citizen participation. So my final point is, and more generally, and this is, I think we should help to develop a citizens' internet, and I mean by that a democratically configured internet that is linked, and this is very important, linked to media, because I think the media somehow are not, how can I say, they still need to think through the link between internet and media, linked to media, but also to face discussions of social movements, of political parties, of parliaments, and how to deal this. And an internet that does not only link computers, but links brains and hearts of citizens who want to address social problems and political decisions that affect their lives. So the question I want to leave with you is how this can be realized, or more generally, how e-participation can pursue the democratization of democracy. Thank you.
I think we've got a little bit of time for a few questions to Patrizia, so if anybody would like to ask a couple of questions, we've got the... Would Achim or Birgit, could you perhaps help with the microphones if somebody's got questions? Has anybody got a question, or shall I? Yeah, perhaps if you come up here. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Maybe if I get the ball rolling. We heard a lot about democratization of processes and of democratic organisations. From the point of view of a citizen, you said that these offers in terms of these participation processes and procedures for getting involved in what government does, that they have to have some kind of impact if people are going to take part in it. At the moment, if I'm a citizen and I want to change something, would I be better advised to take part in one of these processes, so like Angela Merkel's dialogue, or should I maybe do the sort of thing that Nick does and set something up myself and organise a movement of my own to try to get change in politics? Which would be the best thing to do?
Well, I think the second, because the first, I mean, the effect of taking part at Angela Merkel's Ideenwettbewerb, a competition of ideas, is totally uncertain, you know, because you can just click something which you think is an important issue, but what will be done with it is totally unclear. And this is what I meant. If you just, you know, waste your time in putting something on the agenda and not knowing what will follow, and with no feedback, I mean, no structured feedback on things, then I think it's really it's nonsensical.
But in general, as well as the Angela Merkel's dialogue, would you say that the efforts to use online tools that to enable citizens, so where the state says citizens are invited to take part, are they so well advanced that you would say it certainly is worth taking part in those rather than just setting up your own?
Okay, so you mean it more in general?
Yeah, more in general.
Yeah, it very much depends on the format. You know, if this is done in a very you know, good manner, then it can be effective. But it depends on what you want to solve. I mean, you know, if you want to solve social problems, if you want to take part into a political decision making, you know, this is not the same. So it really depends very much on the context, on the issue you want to treat, on the who is affected by the decisions, so how many participants you need, and so on and so forth.
Okay.